commence with our CP event. And we have a wonderful speaker and a great topic today. A very apt topic in current days. To commence our proceedings, I request C.A. Raviji to please come on stage and give an introduction of our speaker. C.A. Ravi Devra, please.
Mohammad Dohadwala is a committed yogi and a financial expert. He has worked with various financial services in Oman and held various responsible positions in large banks in Oman since last 23 years. But he is well known for learning, practicing and teaching the yoga. He has got his formal yoga teaching from USA in 2011. And he is very good trainer to us. I'm sure that he will take us through the journey of the mindfulness and meditation. Let's welcome Mr. Mohammad Dohadwala. Thank you.
Please, C. Ramanan Prabhu to escort our speaker, and I request C. Ramanan Prabhu to hand over book bouquet to the speaker, Mr. Mohammad Dohadwala. Please. Keeping with the green tradition, we give a book bouquet instead of a flower bouquet. And I request Mohammad Dohadwala to please commence the presentation.
Good evening, friends and chartered accountants. It's lovely to be here again. Huge thanks to all of you for being here, and of course to Ashwini, who invited me. Last time I was here, we spoke about yoga and your career, and we explored ways in which you can use the principles of yoga to have a more fulfilling career, a more ethical career. And I think ethics is very important in the kind of profession we are in. Today I'm shifting my focus a little bit because I'm assuming all of you are well set in your careers, and probably almost all of you undergo what is known as stress. Anyone here who doesn't have stress? I guess it's just me then. Yeah, never mind, but you can reach that stage too. Let me just preface what I'm saying so that I set up your expectations for today. Whatever I talk about is based on two things. One, what I have read, so theory, but more importantly, it's also based on what I actually practice in my day-to-day life. So where I'm coming from is a place of practice, and sometimes my practice doesn't always agree with theory, in which case I will probably let you know that, I feel things are different. But let's dig into this topic of de-stressing, and why do we need to de-stress, and probably how we can de-stress. So I think everyone is aware that stress causes a lot of bad things for us, from simple things like colds, flus, and eczemas, to really horrible things like depression, cancer, heart disease, and everything in between, stomach ulcers, asthma, post-traumatic stress disorders, and what have you. So, is everyone comfortable with the volume? Yeah, okay. So I think everyone pretty much knows this, and this is the age of the internet and WhatsApp, and every day I'm sure you're bombarded with videos about how stress is killing you and how stress is bad. So if you've ever wondered how is it that stress is actually killing you, this is what researchers have found. I'll make it very simple. Basically, the human body has two nervous systems, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. The parasympathetic nervous system is your rest and digest system. So when everything is fine, the parasympathetic nervous system takes over. It tells your stomach, digest the food properly, and a lot of maintenance work is done. White blood cells are created, it fights off infection, and all of that. When there is danger, for example, in the earlier days when there was a tiger or a snake around, and in modern days when your boss is around, or your wife No. Your boss is around. Suddenly I'm trembling. Anyway, so when your boss is around, you get into the fight or flight mode. That's your sympathetic nervous system. That's basically your body going back to the primitive days when what is most important is self-preservation. So what happens when you get into this fight or flight mode? First, the body understands there is stress out there. The body accepts this as a threat. It starts releasing hormones. The biggest one is cortisol, and there are a whole host of them, whose names, honestly, I'm not a doctor, so I can't even pronounce. But let's just stick with cortisol for the time being. What cortisol does is it starts triggering reactions all over. One, it starts slowing down, it starts shortening your breath. So instead of having full deep breaths, you start, okay? Then it starts quickening your heartbeat. Why? Because it knows you need blood to the muscles. It diverts the blood from the digestive system to the muscles because you might have to fight or flight or run away. And the digestive system is not much used there. There you need your muscles. So this is the use of cortisol. Unfortunately, what cortisol also does is it inhibits the production of white blood cells. And what happens then is you become susceptible to infection. Now in the good old days, the tiger would come and you would either run away or get eaten up by the tiger, and that would be the end of it. You find a nice place, you sit, you rest, you relax, the danger is over, and your parasympathetic nervous system comes back online, and you're fine. Stress is gone, you're fine. Unfortunately, now what happens is your boss is around you all the time, your wife is also probably around you all the time, and there's constant stress out there. We're in this zone of mobile phones where you're answerable on your emails 24/7. It just gets too stressful. So your stress levels are constantly high. And because your stress levels are constantly high, your cortisol levels tend to be high. And because of that, your immune system starts going down to the extent that your white blood cells get so confused, they actually start attacking your own cells. So it's like an autoimmune disorder. So, it's all bad stuff, but it's better to know what's happening, and then let's all agree that stress is bad for you, right? Stress is bad for you. Strangely, what I found with my research is this is not true. This is not true. Is stress bad for you? And not really. Why is this? So this was a book written by Dr. Blair Justice way back in 1980. He wrote this book in 1980, Think Yourself Healthy, and he found a very strange thing. He found that when a group of people were exposed to the same germ or the same virus, not everybody fell sick. Only a few people fell sick, and only a few people consistently fell sick. Then he dug a little deeper, and he found everyone had nearly similar lives, similar jobs, similar stresses. So what was going on? There was a key difference between the group that was falling sick and the group that was not falling sick. And the key difference was the group that was falling sick perceived themselves to be out of control, perceived that stress was bad and felt they could do nothing about it. They felt totally helpless. While the group that did not fall sick had the same stress. It's not that they were leading stress-free lives, but what happened was they had a sense of control. They had a sense that I am bigger than the stress. I can manage this, I've got this. So what Dr. Blair in 1980 has found is that it's not stress that's harmful. What is harmful is your perception of stress. If you feel the stress is too much and I can't take it, you will succumb. Now this perception may be conscious, you might be aware this is too much, Or it may be unconscious. You're not even aware of it. Consciously you say, no, it's okay, I'll get on with this. But unconsciously, it's eating you up from the inside. And that is what is bad. So I'll give you a small example. Everyone knows going to the gym is great for health and all that. Why is it great for health? What happens when you actually lift weights? You're stressing your muscles. When you stress your muscles, they break down. When they break down, your body learns to repair itself. But how much weight are you lifting? Only as much as you think you can. So that stress is actually good for you because your body is learning to adapt, to cope, and to become stronger. Unfortunately, if you're normally repping, let's say 10 kilos, and suddenly one day you say, I'm Tarzan and I'll take 50 kilos, you're going to throw a muscle, you're going to, sprain a tendon or a ligament. It's not going to be good. You're going to take on much more stress than you can. And that's exactly what he found happening at the mental level. If you feel you can cope with the stress, great. You won't ever fall sick, or you'll fall sick very rarely. But if you feel you can't handle the stress, you will keep falling sick. So we've established one thing. It's how you think about stress that impacts your health. The stress is the same, it's out there for everyone. Let's move on to the molecular level. How is it that your thoughts are translating into your body, into this magnificent body, and causing you to either fall sick or age faster than you need to? This piece of research, so I'll just skip this. Yeah, this piece of research was done by Dr. Elizabeth Blackburn. She's a Nobel Prize-winning physiologist. She got the Nobel Prize in 2009. And her research was on telomeres. So what are telomeres? Telomeres are these red caps at the ends of your DNA. So we have billions and billions of cells. Each cell has the DNA. DNA is the blueprint of the cell, exactly how the cell, what function it should do, what it should look like. So at any time, your cells keep dying, and at any time, there are millions of cells that are being regenerated in your body. The white blood cells, red blood cells, your muscles, your bone, your skin, your hair, everything is getting regenerated. So cells are duplicating. How do cells duplicate? The DNA coils, they basically split and they create a copy of themselves, and that's how one cell becomes two cells. But every time the DNA splits, the telomeres, those are those red caps at the ends of the DNA, they tend to erode, they tend to deplete. So it's a little like your shoelaces. Your shoelaces have those plastic things at the end, they're called aglets. When they wear out, your shoelace kind of just gives up, then it's time to get a new shoelace. So the same thing happens with the telomeres and the DNA. So as long as you have a decent amount of telomere, your DNA can keep replicating and it's fine. Once the telomere wears down, the DNA can no longer safely replicate, because then the DNA ends will get mashed. You get into all kinds of mutations, which is not good. And this is the body's way of protecting itself, so the cell simply dies. It will no longer be able to replicate. When many cells start dying at a certain point of time, old age starts setting in. So for example, whitening of the hair. When you start graying, it's basically your pigments dying off. Now what Dr. Elizabeth found was that there is an enzyme in the body called telomerase, which is crucial for maintaining the health of your telomeres. In fact, if telomerase activity is optimal, telomeres don't deplete very fast. So you maintain a very youthful look, you maintain good health. Now, Dr. Blackburn was a physiologist, and this is all she did. But the university she was at, I think it was at University of, I think it was California, I'm not sure. Her colleague in the psychology department said, let's do an experiment where they test for stress. So they took mothers with, infants up to 5 years and checked their stress levels. And mothers who had a higher stress level had much lower levels of telomerase. That's the enzyme needed to keep telomeres happy and healthy. And those were the mothers that looked frazzled, they were the mothers who looked old, they were the mothers who kept falling sick. So this is at the genetic, at the molecular level, what stress can do to you if you feel you're not in control. So two things. One is, of course, there's a lot of hormonal activity going on within your body, which controls how you fight disease, how quickly you age. And two is your perception. How important is your perception in controlling your well-being? Let's have a look at that. So this is another book written by another doctor, Dr. Lisa Rankin, Mind Over Medicine. And this book is again mind-blowing in what it tells us. What Dr. Lisa has found is there's something called a placebo effect. And doctors and the pharmacy industry has known this for a very long time. In fact, whenever they launch a new drug, they first test it against the placebo effect, which means they take a group of people who are suffering from whatever disease they're trying to cure, they divide them into two. One group, they actually give the medicine. The other group, they just give sugar pills, but they don't tell them it's sugar pills, they say it's medicine. And then see who gets cured. If the medicine is statistically significantly better than the placebo, only then is the medicine allowed in the market. So the placebo effect is actually a very strong sense of whether something works or not. And what she found was that more often than not, the placebo effect works perfectly well. Which means people are getting cured not by actual medicine, not actually by sugar pills, because we all know sugar pills never cure anybody, but by their belief. Their belief that they can cure themselves. So she did a little more digging and said, where is this coming from? And the nuances. And what she found was, what matters is how the medicine is given to you. What doesn't matter is what the medicine is. If the doctor is very impersonal, okay, you got 2 minutes, what is it? He doesn't even look at you. He's constantly scribbling notes. He's at the computer. He's trying to get the next patient in. He's answering the phone. Chances are you will not be cured because there is no human interaction. On the other hand, if the doctor is very caring, what is wrong with you, and let's see, and tells you everything is going to be all right, even if he prescribes a sugar pill, you're going to be all right. And this is not just me saying it, this is scientific experiments being done over groups of patients, and then they have control groups, and then they have, the non-control group. So it's all very scientifically laid out. In fact, there's one example that stands out in my mind about this man. This was some years ago. He had cancer, and it was a very aggressive form of cancer, and he was in a pretty late stage. I think it was lymphatic cancer. So he had all these swellings all over him, and he read about a new drug that had been discovered, which seemed promising for curing cancer. So he kept telling his doctor, give me this drug, and his doctor kept refusing first. This guy kept insisting, and then the doctor said, what do I have to lose? Anyway, he's just got 2-3 months to live, so let's prescribe it for him. He took that medicine. Within a week, all his swellings had disappeared. He was cancer-free. He went on to live for another 6 months. Until a newspaper article came out and the patient read that newspaper article saying that drug was all nonsense and it's essentially been scrapped. Within 1 week, all his swellings came back and he was back with full-blown cancer. So this time the doctor said, let me act smart about this. So what the doctor did is, he told him, yeah, that batch of medicines was really bad. I think it was a contaminated batch. Now I've got some really good stuff. You know, it's the same medicine, but this is pure stuff. Take this, it'll be good. So this patient took that. Again, within 1 week, he's cancer-free. He goes on happy, lives another 6, 7, I don't know, whatever months. Until one more piece of research comes out and says this drug is totally fraudulent, it's totally ineffective against any form of cancer. It's being pulled off completely. It's not even being tested anymore. Sure enough, within a month, this person not only got his cancer back, he was dead. So these are the examples with which scientists are now grappling with this fact that the cure is not out there, the cure is all here. It's the way we think. I know it sounds a little crazy sometimes, you know, how is it that just by thinking I can become all right? I mean, do any of you believe this? It sounds like new age woo-woo, you know, like what is this? It's not even scientific. So, in order to convince you, let me give you another example. How many of you here like roller coasters? So you really like roller coasters, right? What is it you like? The thrill, the adventure. How many of you here hate roller coasters? What is it you hate about it? It's frightening. Yeah? So I used to be in your camp 3-4 years ago. I hated roller coasters. I just could never get in. And so I was with my family at this park and I saw this roller coaster where, you know, there's this small little seat, you sit on it and then you're strapped in and then the roller coaster takes off and somewhere on the park it gets you totally upside down, so your feet are up in the sky, your head is down, you're looking down at the park, and I said, this is crazy, I'm never going to do this. I'm never going to do this. And I could, actually when my kids were saying, come on, let's go for this, I could feel my heart beating faster, my, you know, palms sweating because I had to accompany them and I said, no, I just can't do this. And that's when my wife decided to step in, and this is why I say women are really intelligent. She just literally gave me one of those looks and said, are you stupid? In yoga, you keep going upside down all the time. You know, we do inversions, we do headstands, we do handstands, we do all kinds of crazy things. Saying, yeah, someone else is doing it for you, just go and enjoy it. So I said, okay, that makes sense, I'm going to try. And I just changed my mental attitude and I said, this is nothing but a handstand, and I do handstands all the time. So I went and I strapped myself in, heart was not beating, everything was fine. I was upside down over the park, and believe me, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much, I actually went for a second round. So it's the same stimulus, it's the same roller coaster. But some of us are frightened, and some of us, the cortisol level starts rising and saying, no, I can't do this, and you know, I'm going to die, and all kinds of thoughts get into our head. And for some of us, it's an adventure. What comes up, what hormones come up are your endorphins. Endorphins are your feel-good hormones. They make you feel happy. They make you relaxed. They enhance your immunity system. So it's the same stimulus. It's the same roller coaster. Nothing has changed. It's just the way you perceive it that has changed. It's because you've changed the way you thought. The hormones that you release have changed. You're no longer releasing cortisol, you're releasing endorphins. So ultimately, it's all up here. If it's all up here, who was talking about all up here? Now that's the beauty. This is not a scientific text. The Yoga Sutras were written thousands and thousands of years ago. Some people say 5,000 years ago. I don't know. There is no scientific evidence of when they were written, but they are part of the Indian cultural heritage. And I think we ought to be really proud of it. because there is so much of wisdom that is contained in this book. It's unimaginable. And when I started practicing yoga, I always doubted it because I always said, yeah, this was written by someone 5,000 years ago. I mean, what's the scientific evidence? But as I've just shown you, there's mounting scientific evidence that whatever was written in the Yoga Sutras was very sound. It was actually very good. And just to give you an example, I have written down the first 2 Yoga Sutras. So a sutra is basically a thread, and the Yoga Sutras are basically a whole list of one-liners that give you guiding principles about leading a good life, which is ultimately what we want. We want to lead a good life. So Sutra 1 says, now begins the study of yoga. And when I first read it, I said, oh, come on, don't be so cheesy. You don't have to announce that now begins the study of yoga. What's the big deal? Just start anyway. But then I thought, and I thought, and I thought, and I thought. And now it's probably the most beautiful sutra, and it's right there as the number 1 sutra. Note the emphasis on the word now begins the study of yoga. Now. Not in the past, not in the future. Because really, the past and the future don't exist. They only exist in your head. The past really doesn't exist. It's happened. It's finished. Your head keeps remembering it. Maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way. But whatever it is, it's this that recreates it, sometimes correctly, sometimes wrongly. The future also doesn't exist. Nobody knows what the future is about. But you love to create it. And especially the financial community. We love to create the future on Excel spreadsheets. And we love sitting in front of our computer terminals and wondering how the project is going to go. But it doesn't really exist. It only exists in our heads. And if you've done any kind of financial planning, budgeting, modeling, you know how stressful that can be. Because you're using this power, this great computer, to foresee the future and all the problems that can go on, and you just basically talk yourself into an anxious state. And here it is, the Yoga Sutras saying, now begins the study of yoga. It brings you back to the now. And there have been a lot of mistakes, a lot of spiritual speakers like Eckhart Tolle, who keep saying the importance, who keep telling us about the importance of the now, of being in the present moment. And the only thing that anchors us to the now is our breath. Your breath is the only thing that is going to remain with you from the time you're born to the time you're dead. So this is that beautiful connection that yoga gives you to the here and the now. And what's the next sutra? The next sutra is the restraint of the modifications of the mind stuff is yoga. I know it sounds a little convoluted in English, but it's a direct translation from Sanskrit. Sanskrit says, yoga's-chitta vritti nirodha. More simply put, yoga is stopping the mental fluctuations of the mind. So, it's not saying zeroize your thoughts. It's not saying completely blank out your brain, because I think somewhere we all know we can't stop thinking. But it is saying restrain your thoughts. Don't let your thoughts control you. Be very clear, yoga is asking you to control your thoughts. It's a whole different philosophy and debate about where the you is. Is you the body? Is you the mind? Is you someone beyond the body or the mind? Those questions are debatable, and yeah, the Yoga Sutras do address them in later sutras, but I won't get into that. That's a whole different discussion. But just in Sutras 1 and 2, Patanjali has laid out the whole map for human happiness. 1, stay in the present. Because the minute you start worrying too much about the past or the future, you're going to feel disturbed. 2, you want to feel good, you want to be happy, you want to be healthy, restrain your mind. Don't let your mind go all over the place. And that's precisely why I absolutely love yoga and love talking about yoga because, as you saw, there is mounting scientific evidence that it's basically your mind that's literally making you sick. And I know now it's fashionable to say, oh, I'm so stressed and I'm going to fall sick. But it's not the stress, it's your mind. So get a control of that and you're going to be very happy. Quickly, this is what yoga tells us about how to achieve that mind control. So, it's not just that it tells you, okay, you need to control your mind or you need to restrain your mental disturbances. It actually gives you a path. It gives you a runway which you can actually follow. And if you notice, it's pretty commonsensical. You start with the yama and the niyama, the do's and the don'ts. So it kind of forms the moral, ethical platform on which you can lead your life. And this is very simple stuff. This is stuff like, don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal, speak the truth, be composed. So it's not very fancy stuff. It's not telling you what to eat, what not to eat, and none of that. It's just telling you basic, decent human values. Why? Because unless you have this, you're never going to ensure a steady platform for your mind. Because you all know that if you do wrong stuff, you are going to be plagued by guilt. You are going to be plagued by someone else's curses. So, the sutras clear that ground for you first. So please lead as moral and righteous a life as you can. Then you go on to asana. Basically, making sure that your physical body is ready and willing. Because all too often I find in a lot of yoga discussions, we should only do meditation. All this asana and all is all rubbish. Asana is meant for the athletic people and it's not for us. How are you going to sit in meditation for any length of time when your body is revolting? You're so used to sitting with a slouched back. And meditation does require you to sit with a tall spine. How are you going to hold that spine tall if you haven't trained your body enough to take it? And that is why asana comes in. And again, the beauty is, the Yoga Sutras don't talk of a single asana. They don't talk of warrior 1, warrior 2, headstand, handstand, nothing. The Yoga Sutras only say that your asana should be steady and comfortable. Sukham sthiram asana. That's all it says. Now, beyond that, of course, all of us yogis have, practiced all these poses. But ultimately, there is a reason to it. It's to make you feel good in your body, to make you feel alive, to make you feel comfortable in standing or sitting in your meditation for any period of time. Once you've nailed asana, only then do you go to your breath control, your pranayama. That's the connection with the now. And from pranayama onwards, it's all meditation. You start with pratyahara. What is pratyahara? It's basically withdrawing your senses. Because your senses are the windows through which you perceive threat, you perceive stress. So you start withdrawing your senses. Then you get to dharana. What does dharana literally means? To hold. Try to hold one thought or be focused on one thing. Then is dhyana, which is you totally lose yourself in that sea of either one thought or zero thought. And then of course finally is nirvana, which is complete and total bliss. So the sutras, this is actually called the Ashtanga, 8-limbed path of yoga. It actually gives you a very practical way of de-stressing. If you find all of this too difficult to practice, I think most of us have the first two covered, the yama and the niyama, if not through religion, at least through our ethical codes. Start off with asana and see how you feel. Move on to pranayama. I can assure you that anyone who's practiced yoga for any length of time does come out saying they feel changed from the inside. And what does that mean? The world has remained the same. It's that they've changed the way they deal with the world. They've changed the way they look at the world. They've changed the way they think they are going to handle the world. And most of them, I think all of them, come out being much more positive, much more energetic, much more calmer individuals. I think I have covered most of what I had to say. And then if you want, this is just throwing it out there, the mind-body connection. Energy and matter, there is duality. And you know, earlier when people used to say things like, you think or ho jayega, you know, you create your reality. I used to say, what rubbish is this? And, you know, just if I think and I create my reality, then why is my bank balance not $1 million right now? But it's not about the bank balance. It's actually about your health and how you feel and how happy you are regardless of the circumstances around you, because the circumstances around you will keep changing. And then I started reading up about quantum physics, and again I was blown away. Some of you might have read about the wave-particle duality. So if you go back to your school days, you remember the atom that we learned. There's a nucleus, protons and neutrons, and then there are those cartoon electrons that revolve around. And so initially it was thought that electrons are actually particles. But when scientists did the experiments, they found that electrons actually had wave-like properties. So electrons are both particles and waves. And then there was another group of scientists that thought light was pure energy, which means it was pure waves. Wave is pure energy. But then they discovered the photoelectric effect, where when light hits a metal foil, it actually releases electrons. The metal releases electrons, completes an electric circuit, and there is electricity that you can measure. The only way that can happen is if there is something physical hitting the metal, and that's the only way the electrons are going to get dislodged. Which means light is a particle. And that's when they invented this term called photons. So there are photons of light. So right at the subatomic level, we are not sure whether our existence is matter or energy. We know that a small amount of uranium can explode and with that energy destroy the whole world. We know that sunlight falling on leaves creates starch, which is matter and which sustains all of us. There's always a dance between energy and matter, and we can see that dance within ourselves. Our thoughts are basically pure energy. It's nothing but electrical impulses between the synapses of our neurons in the brain. This pure energy translates into physicality, into your hormones that are being released. These hormones go and impact your organs, and this gives you a sense of either well-being or being sick. So now the choice is really yours. Stress is always going to be there. Your boss is always going to be there. You can't do much about that. But there's one crucial thing you can do, and that is change your perception of what is happening out there. It's like me on the roller coaster. You can choose to say, I'm too scared with this, and just harm yourself and be unhappy with it. Or you can say, you know what, I'm going to enjoy this adventure. Let's see what happens. And hopefully feel good at the end of it. Thank you, you've been a wonderful audience. I'm happy to take questions, if any. Energy is equal to mass times the velocity of light squared. Thank God I'm an engineer.
Yoga asanas your teachers?
Not right now, because everyone's wearing ties and belts, but that has never stopped me from talking about yoga asanas. But if you wish, I can just let you in on a thought experiment. So, just sit up tall, get into your breath, and if you want, close your eyes. If you want, keep your eyes open. I don't really care. And go back in time. I know I'm taking you back in the past, but this is important. Go back just, let's say, half an hour, 40 minutes ago when you went for the iftar snacks. And just think about what were the thoughts going through your head when you were taking food onto your plate. Were the thoughts totally discordant? Were you so busy talking to the person next to you, you didn't really care what you were picking up? Were your thoughts about quantity? How much of this paneer should I take? Were the thoughts doubtful? Is this going to be nice? Am I going to like it? Were the thoughts downright negative? Oh my god, paneer, so much cholesterol, what's going to happen to me? Should probably not eat it. Or were your thoughts, nutrition, good for me, let's see what happens. So just go back and think. And then whatever it is you were thinking, just be aware of it and come back, open your eyes. This is the crucial thing. How much of our lives we live on autopilot. We let our thoughts just go. And then we actually act out those thoughts. So we believe first, paneer is going to cause cholesterol. And then we take it nevertheless on our plate. And then we eat it. Even if it doesn't cause cholesterol, it's going to cause you cholesterol. But if you just change your thought and say, no, it's going to be a blessing. And as long as I don't exceed my limits, I'm just going to enjoy this paneer, whatever it is, it's going to be that for you. And it's not just this, it's everything that we do in life, even if it's one of those stupid spreadsheets that we do. What is the thought, what is the intention with which we start any exercise? I think that is crucial, because that forms your thought energy, that forms your thought patterns for that exercise. And notice this, half the time we approach our work without even thinking. And then we get into something called default mode network, DMN. What is DMN? Scientists have found that if I just ask you to sit, close your eyes, try not to think anything, you will think something. What will you think? You will think a repetitive pattern of thoughts. And each one has their own individual repetitive pattern of thoughts. For some people, it is, how am I going to get my next promotion? Or for some people, it is, what is the next car I'm going to buy? But you just get into a repetitive set of thoughts. And this can end up being very damaging because it pulls you away from so many other things. And this is the other thing I've learned in practice. They say you think positive, positive will happen. How? It's not magic. You think positive, what actually happens is you calm yourself down, you release a lot of your brain energy from negative thoughts. You allow your brain to perceive opportunities out there. You come across as a more confident, calm, stable individual. People trust you more, and that's how the magic happens. It's not like jadoo. There's no jadoo. It's pretty scientific. And, thanks for asking me to do an asana, but this is just as difficult. In fact, if anything, it's more difficult. To constantly monitor your thoughts and make sure we are creating the life we want rather than the life that is going by default. Any other questions?
Basically, the thought process, Suppose if you want to meditate or you want to play, in whatever form you want to play, you want to concentrate on certain things. Rather than when you are doing nothing, you want to concentrate or you want to meditate or you want to, when you go to a worshiping place, you want to pray. As you strive hard to do that, your mind keeps wandering off to somewhere else. Keep, wandering around.
Jumping around.
Yeah, jumping around. So, what is the process a layman do to control this?
Okay. It's a very good question because I have struggled with this for a long time in my own practice. The simple answer is just leave it. First accept that that is the nature of your mind. That's how you have been all your life. And suddenly it's not like a switch. Suddenly you're not going to switch it off. First, accept it. Second is, don't be judgmental about yourself. The whole idea is to develop kindness and compassion. So the first kindness and compassion you show is towards yourself. Yeah, it happens. It happens to all of us. Even the most experienced meditators will have this issue. It's just that they don't talk about it anymore because they just accept it and they say, let's move on. Over time, what you will find is that if you're kind and compassionate to yourself, you will find that yes, your mind keeps wandering, but something more beautiful will happen. You will become aware of what you're thinking. And I think that is where the change starts happening, because now you are aware of what you're thinking. Because then the mind will ask, why did I think that? Where is that coming from? And slowly, once you start resolving all these conflicts, and most of it are conflicts deep in your subconscious that are bubbling up. You're not even aware of it. But the minute you start paying attention to it, those conflicts come up to the surface and you start resolving them. The minute your conflicts start getting resolved, they won't come up again. So over time, you'll find gradually your mind has less and less to wander about. But yet, your brain is so tuned to thinking a thought, you have to give it something. It's like a dog and a bone. You have to give the dog a bone to keep it busy. So that's when you realize you can switch. It's called Pratipaksha Bhavana. From random thoughts to thoughts of compassion, of kindness, of heartfulness, or whatever it is positive that you want to think of. At least that's more productive than all the rubbish that we normally end up thinking. I mean, the worst is gulab jamun. So, over time you switch to positivity. Over time you realize you don't even need that. It's a journey. There is, unlike our CA and CFA exams, there's no set point, you've got to clear these many papers in this much time. It's your life, it's your journey. And as you live your life, conflicts will arise again. And that's why it's not like, I've reached nirvana and that's the end. In fact, there's a very nice book called After the Nirvana, The Laundry. Because even after achieving nirvana, people have to still do the laundry. And that's the process of life. And that's why it's a practice. It's never the end, it's never final. It's a practice, you get back. But what's beautiful is, if you practice, everything else gets sorted. That's all. Yeah?
Sir, I just want to know, we all are running through busy schedules and office hours and all.
Yeah.
So normally after office hours we reach at 7:30 or something, someone maybe late also.
So you want me to talk to your boss?
No, just I want to know, sometimes is it like physical exercise, like go to gym or swimming or tennis or shuttle or something, or yoga? What is like preferable? And if I'm preferring yoga, how much time is need to be productive? Like?
Okay, so here's the thing. I'm going out on a limb. I'm just basing this on what I've read before. The simple answer is it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you do, but try and do something. What matters more than anything else is the intention with which you approach that activity. So I teach yoga. I see a lot of my fellow yogis. They come with zero intention. And I can see it. The intention would probably be, I got to hang out here, I got to be seen to be doing yoga. And I can see it doesn't benefit them at all. Not that I'm going to tell them, because everyone is on their own journey. But what is most important is the intention. You can go swimming, you can go jogging, but ultimately you have to set your intention. That I'm going to get a physical workout, I'm going to see if I can focus my mind on one thing. Why does it work? Because any physical activity gets you focused on your breath. So if you're really a keen runner, so I jog quite a lot myself. I just completely focus on my breath, and that gets my mind away from the rest. When you're doing yoga, especially the more cardio forms of yoga like vinyasa or ashtanga, you're so focused on your breath, because if you let go of your breath, you're going to lose the pose. So you're so focused on the breath, you're so focused on the balance. That is most important. Now, whether it's running, it's swimming, it's tennis, doesn't matter. Get into the flow. And I do another talk, Yoga and Happiness. One of the principles of happiness is how much you can get into flow. What is flow? You lose sense of time. If you're playing tennis, you're just focused on the next ball. How am I going to hit the next ball? You're not focused on whether I'm winning the match or I'm losing the match. You're just focused on the next ball. That's all that matters to you. Where if you're running, it's the next step. That's it. When you achieve that degree of focus, you're back to what I had talked about, dharna, dhyana, pratyahara. So you're giving up sense, you're focusing on one thing, and that is where the magic begins. I hope I've answered your question. So it's really your choice. Yeah, actually there is one Yoga Sutra that says accept pain as purification. But at the same time, I always temper it, and I tell the people who study yoga with me, pain should not be because of your ego. There are some people who actually try and get into a pose and hold the pose because it's becoming an ego thing. I should be able to do this. The minute your ego gets in the way, you're finished. So it's actually dissolving your ego and then seeing where you go. But you're right, you have to accept some amount of pain for that change to happen. And one of the sutras actually says this: learn to accept pain as purification. So if you want to meditate, yeah, so just sit up straight, find yourself into a nice, comfortable position. Try and push your tailbone as far back into your chair as possible so you're completely supported. And start focusing on your breath. Don't try and change your breath, just focus. How are you breathing in? How are you breathing out? Cool air coming in, warm air going out. Simple. Feel the quality of your breath. For today, I will try one simple yoga meditation technique borrowed from the Buddhists. If you don't feel very disturbed, think of death. Think of your own mortality and whatever it is around death that you want to think of. Unfinished projects, how you're going to go, probably what happens when you go, whatever it is. So focus your attention entirely on what it means to go. Stay with your breath, and I'll slowly stop speaking and leave you with your breath and your focus on eventual death for a few minutes. I guess you can sense the positivity you've created. This is sudden calmness. Just enjoy that. And it's so simple. We can create this for ourselves any day, any time. In your office, in your home. All you have to do is go within and focus. The technique we used today is used by Buddhist monks even now. And actually, again, there is scientific evidence that if you keep every day meditating on your own death, you're going to be a lot happier with your life now. There's scientific evidence for that. And it's clear because it puts life in perspective when you think of your own death and you think of finality. There are some people who feel very troubled by this. If you're one of them, don't do it. Focus on something else. But if you feel comfortable, try this every day. Sit 5-10 minutes, think of your own death. Hopefully you'll be a lot more happier with your own life. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all of the audience.
I request CA Sajid Surendran to please hand over the memento, and I request the MC members to please come on the stage. Friends, can I have a please loud round of applause with all the energy that we had with only 5 minutes of meditation. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mohammed. As usual, it was really wonderful hearing you once again. I request CA Shanawaz Khan to please come and propose vote of thanks, and after that we will have a sumptuous dinner for everyone.
Thank you very much for turning in large numbers, and thank you very much, C. Ashwani, for introducing the speaker. Actually, he's a wonderful speaker. Yes, when the session was on stress and yoga management, I thought, why that we don't have the yoga mats. So I was wondering, what the session is going to be all about. But without the yoga mats, we created so much energy. Maybe just to reflect some of the highlights, which I'm probably going to take it away. When you ask us to close your eyes and thought the 45 minutes back, I could count my paneer pieces, how many I've taken. And my next agenda is how many I'm going to eat afterwards. So thank you very much. Yes, change yourself. And I could not understand that there are so many techniques to change yourself, and yoga and stress management can be so scientific. So thank you very much for bringing those. And probably the focus within, that's a new concept I'm going to take on board. And this repetitive thought also, that's another new thing. And the last session which you have done it for a couple of minutes for us, think about your death. I rather felt so relaxed. So thank you very much. I just need to ask one question. I thought of asking it earlier as well. When you get into the yoga, before the CFA or after the CFA? Before. That's why you managed to clear your CFA. Okay. So thank you very much, and it was a wonderful session. So friends, we come to the end. We like to thank our sponsors for this, facilitating all these facilities, CBFS, our photographer, Nagesh Saab, and his assistants, all the MC members, and CSW in particular, for bringing such a wonderful speaker. And this happens to be the last CP event, as our chairman has said earlier, the rules were going to be changed. But I like to personally thank all the MC members, in particular, my chairman, C. Bhavani, and all the MC members as well for wonderful support. We try to create, changes. We've done, our part. But thank you very much for coming in large numbers. And if I forget anyone, thank you very much for the food as well. The Begum food is tremendous today as well. So please keep bringing, the paneer tikkas and gulab jamuns. I don't eat in any way. So thank you very much, and I look forward to see you in large numbers in the coming events as well. Thank you very much.